Hello and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to be building a screen recording browser extension inspired by Loom after their recent acquisition. So this is going to be built using Vanilla.js. We'll have a quick demo in a moment before we jump into the code. But it's basically going to be using, like I say, Vanilla.js to try and keep this as simple as possible, focusing on the Chrome APIs that we actually need to use. So if you've never built an extension before, this could be a great place to start. If you want to learn more about building browser extensions, you can find a link down below to my brand new Extension Academy, where we go into detail on lots of different things when it comes to building extensions, and there's more information in that link. And you can also find links to the full source code as well. One more thing, if you do find this video helpful, please do subscribe. I've got a goal of trying to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. So let's jump in now and take a look at what this extension will do and then get started. First, you can see we have the extension over here. And when you click onto the pop-up, you have the option to either record this single tab that we're on or the entire screen. So if we go to record the tab here, it's going to inject the camera into the page like this and start recording. You can see here that this tab, this icon has turned red. I'll mention that again in a moment. So once we're finished recording, we can come back up here and click stop recording. So what that will do, it's going to be recording the audio and the footage from that tab and take you to this page. If we go back now and record the entire screen, you can see this works slightly differently due to the way it's set up within the extension. So we click that, it's going to take us over to this pinned focus tab over here to actually request the permission to record the screen. So as soon as we hit share, it's going to take us back and we can now, move between tabs. And because it knows that we're recording the entire screen, it will inject the camera there to allow us to do that. And as soon as we hit stop recording again, it's going to update that version of the video. You can see if we refresh, keeps that context. And that's basically the extension we're going to be building. So in this extension here, we're focusing on, getting the main parts of this extension set up. And there's a few things, you can go into in the future and improve. But it's a great starting point to build an extension like this. One more thing I want to mention is this is uses this sample from Chrome as a starting point. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well if you want to see how this actually started. But we've gone a little bit of a step further here by using the camera and being able to actually inject this as well. So let's get started now and take a look at what we actually need to do to build this extension. So first we need to set up our core files. Then we're going to look into actually injecting the camera in the corner of the screen. So in our case, it'll be up here. Then we'll look at first what we need to record a single tab, and then how we can record the entire screen, because there's a few differences between this. And then finally we'll go on to actually making sure once we've finished recording that we send this data to that special tab or page within our extension where you can view the video. So that's the rough flow that we're going to go through. So the first step is to set up our core files. Now there's going to be more files than just these, but we'll start by just looking at these ones just here. So let's go across back now into our projects, and we're going to start by making our manifest file. So that's manifest.json. In this example, I was thinking about a few different ways that we could structure this. Actually, I'm going to move over here. And for this, we're just going to use Vanilla.js so we can see exactly what we need for this extension. So we're not going to be using any frameworks or libraries in this to begin with. So first, let's start by writing out our manifest file. So for this, we need to have a name for our extension. So for this, we'll just call it, let's call it Rusty Recorder, something like that. And this records the current tab in an off-screen document and the whole screen. So like we saw, we're going to have that pop-up page so the user can select which of these they want to use. This is going to be version 1 of our extension, manifest version 3. We need a minimum Chrome version of 116 so that we can use the updated tab capture. And then we'll just have an icon here. We don't need to really worry about this icon, but in theory here, similar to that Chrome sample, we could have a change in the icon when it's recording. So you can see this icon as red. But again, doesn't worry too much about this. We just need to make sure we have popup.html just here, which is a file we'll create in a moment. Then we need host permissions. So ideally this needs to be run on every single domain. So we've just got these global host permissions here, these wildcards on HTTPS or not. So that will be so we can actually inject the camera into the page. Then we have our background service worker. So you can see here, this is just going to be service-worker.js. And then we have our permissions. So there's a few permissions we need here. So we need the tab capture. So this is the one that actually lets us access the current tab. Then we need off screen. So this is how we can actually handle processing that tab in the background. Then we need scripting, so we can actually inject our content script, which is essentially our camera into the corner of the screen. Then we need storage. We're using this basically to set into the into storage, whether we're recording or not, and information about the type of recording in place. So is it the current tab? Is it the whole screen? So we can then use this through our extension. Then we need desktop capture. So this is when we actually go to record the whole screen. We need this permission just here. And finally, we have the tabs permission. So this one is so we can listen for when tabs are changed, and we need the tabs permission here so we can actually access the URL. So you can use you can listen for when these tabs are changed without this permission, but we need to include this permission so that we can actually check what the URL is on. Because, for example, if it's a Chrome settings page URL, say like this, we can't inject our script in that case, because you'll notice when we were testing there, if it's one of these URLs, it won't work. And the same for like extension pages as well. So that's just one thing we need to check for. That's why we need tabs. And then finally, we have our web accessible resources. So this will be for our camera pages, our video pages, and this can be run on any site as well. So that's what we need for our manifest file. You can find all of the code for this in the description, so the complete project, but feel free to code along as well. Okay, so that's our manifest file. And now we need to, as you can see here, create these other files. So first we're going to create our popup.html. Again, this can be just an empty file for now. Then we need our popup.js. Then, still looking through, we need our service worker.js. And then finally, you can see down here, we have a few more files, which we'll go through when we get there, but that's camera.html, camera.js, and same for video. So just to run through what these files are going to be used for, these video ones are when we actually have our finished recorded video. This is how we're going to display it on the page. So we don't need to worry about that until the end. Our service worker is going to be quite an important file. Our pop-up is what we're going to show in the corner to let the user select what type of recording they want to make. And then our camera is to actually inject our camera into the page. We need one more file here of off-screen. And this is so we can have an off-screen document, which is where we're going to process our tab recording. So let's just first close all of these tabs for a moment, and then we're going to go back to our list over here. So this is all of the files we've recorded, so we can cross that out. So now we're going to focus on our camera injection. So to do that, let's go to Wikipedia as an example page, and we're going to move just over here. So what we want to do is try and make some code that can inject a circle very similar to this one here, without these options for now, that can inject the camera into the page. We need to go and make one more file. It's going to be called content.js. So what this file is basically going to be for is a way to have like an in-between stage. So we have our camera, and we want to be able to inject this. So we're going to start by going to this content script here and just add a comment of what we actually want this file to do. So this is basically going to inject an iframe into the corner of the page that has the permissions to access the camera. So because of the way this works in the browser, we need to make sure we have the permissions, because this is right in on the page. There's sort of more ways we could have gone about this by recording the camera in one place and then adding these two streams together by manipulating the content, but that could quickly get quite complicated. So what we're going to do here is start by just adding a div into the corner of the page. So what we're going to do is create a ID for this div to begin with. So we'll call it, let's call it camera ID. And this would just be equal to, let's call it rusty camera for now. And then what we want to do is check, well, not like this. We could do that actually. So let's check first if the camera exists already. So if camera exists, well, this is just saying to remove it. We're just going to console log it. Camera found, and we'll just put camera like that. And then otherwise, we want to actually inject this into the page. So what we're going to do is create a div on the page. So let's call it camera element. And this will be a div. And we're going to make it have some styling just so we can make sure that we can see where this is. So we'll set the ID like that. And then we'll call it camera element set attribute. And we're going to give it these styles. So Copilot is suggesting some crazy things here, but we don't want all of these. So it will be fixed. But first we're going to do this. And just to make it so we can see what we're happening here, we're going to change this string so we can actually move it into its own lines. So let's just move this down here. We want this to have a width of 200 pixels, a height of 200 pixels. And then because of that, we can set a border radius of 100 pixels. So this will be a circle. We then want to set a Z index so it'll appear, over the top of everything else. And is there anything else we're missing? I think that's okay. And then finally, we need to actually append this to the page. So if we save that, and then what we're going to do to begin with is just go into Popup here. And as soon as the user clicks on the pop-up, we're going to inject this, inject that div or inject our content script into the current page. So what we're basically going to do is inject the content script into the current page. So we're going to use Chrome scripting execute script. So it basically looks something like this, but first, of course, we need to get the current tab ID. So we're going to say tab. If I just move myself over here, we'll get the current tab, and then we can say if there's no tab, we'll just exit out. And then otherwise, we want to set the tab ID equal to this tab ID. And then just here, we can do that. So that should mean that as soon as this runs, we're going to get that tab information. So what we're going to do first, just to see what's happening, is we're going to console log inject into tab, and then we'll just put this tab information just here. But at the moment that won't run because we need to actually add this file to popup.html. So we're just going to add this script here. So maybe we'll say, we could add the whole HTML for this, but we don't need to do that at the moment. So we'll add just an H1 that just says popup. And then underneath this, we'll create a script with a source of popup, like that. So if we come back now and actually add our extension, we can see what we have so far. Okay, so first things first, we can see that we have an issue here with our icons. We're going to go back now and just make sure we add these in first. So I've added these now, and we should see we have this extension over here. And if we come back, and we're going to go over to find it, we're going to pin this and click. Okay, so there is our pop-up. And if we look in here, we can see, okay, that's because we're awaiting this, which is fine actually, because we're just going to do this. We're going to say, and this will be an async function. And then down here, we'll just run our code. So we come back now, refresh, you can see it says inject into tab. So if we refresh this page here and look, let's see if we can find our element. So there is the camera, but at the moment you can see, of course, that we can't actually see where this is because we didn't add a position for this. So we want it to appear in the top right, like that. So let's come back. So if we refresh, you can see that's going to go away. So if we come back over to our content here, we're going to set a top position of say 10 and a right position of 10. Let's just put this as pixels. And then if we save that, and we're going to come back into here, we click here, we can see that that's working. Okay, so that's a very, very rough version of what we want so far. But obviously that isn't what we actually want to happen. But as a start point, we have this div now that as we scroll on this page, if we were to come down here, click this again, it's going to stay. So slowly, we're getting there. So we're going to come back now into our content here, and we're going to change this instead to be an iframe. We can still keep the same styling, but we want to set an iframe source of our camera.html. So if we were to come into this file now and just set let's add styling here, and we're just going to go into the body and set a background color of blue, just so we can see, where this is coming from. So if we come into here now, come back and refresh this page and click onto it, we can see now that we have this blue div here, which is filtering through to our other part of the page. So there we go. There's this very rough version, but we have this just here. What we also want to do, you can see there's this slight border around this element. So we want to make sure that we have border of none, and that should make that much more crisp. So we'll come back again and we have a border of none. But we also first need to make sure that we set permissions for the iframe. So we want to be able to access the camera and the microphone. So to do that, you can see here, Copilot's guess what we want. We want to make sure that we allow camera and microphone. So we come back again, and if we refresh and click, you can see now in here, we have this extra part here that says allow camera and microphone. So in terms of our content script or our content.js file, that's basically all we need to do here. But so now we can go over to our actual camera page and start to fill this out. So over here, we want to replace this with a div essentially that's going to be where our camera is going to show. So we're going to have these two divs. So we're going to have this div just here that's going to have that same width that we created of 200 pixels, a height of 200 pixels. And then we want to make sure that our page has no margin. We can also make sure there's no padding as well. So that's just to make sure that it's not going to push off anything into the corner of the screen. So we can save this just here. And we want to make sure we have an overflow of hidden on that div as well. We can also give this an ID of camera. So we can be really specific about exactly where this is going to get applied to. And we don't need to worry about any of the CSS from the page itself filtering through, because this is in an iframe. On this one, we could. So we could have like all here of initial, just to make sure that nothing filters through as well. But again, I won't worry too much about that because we are really specific with the properties that we're using. And all it really is doing is just showing an iframe in there. There's no text or anything that could worry about being overwritten. So here we have our page just here. Now we just need to make sure that we use our camera script here. So we have this JS just here. So what we're going to do first in this page is grab the div element. So we call it camera element, and this is going to be document query selector. It's not an iframe. It is an ID of camera like this. And then we're just going to console log this for now. And then what we need to do first is use the permissions to actually grab the camera. But first, let's just check what we have just here. So if we come back and refresh, we're going to go up to the top again, open up the console, click into here. Okay, so we can see document isn't defined. I spelt it wrong. Let's just fix that. Come back. Okay, so here is our camera element. So that's coming through nicely. Okay, so what we need to do now is work with the permissions. Because as you can see, we gave it the iframe the ability to request these permissions, but we now need to actually request them. So what we'll see is the first time the user runs the extension, that iframe, well, not just uses the extension, but goes to actually record the tab, it's going to request access to the camera. So that's what we need to grab first. So to do that, we're going to probably another useful thing to do actually is similar to what we did in our Popup. We're going to just make something that's going to run our code. So it's going to be just a simple function like this. And then down here, we can run our code just to make sure that we can use top level awaits and things like that. So down here, we're going to run this code just here. So first, you can see that's why we need to await. We're going to get access to our camera. That's what we're doing just here. And this is going to come back with a number of different things. So if it's in a state of prompt, then we're going to prompt for permissions to access audio and video. Otherwise, if it's a state of denied, we need to basically send a message to the user that the camera was denied. So rather than doing that, we could say alert camera permissions denied. Now this could be for a number of reasons. So if we were to go on a site, say like BBC, they don't allow the iframe to actually request that permission. So, and run this, you would see camera permissions are denied. This is because the site itself, so I think if we go into, where is it, application, manifest, yeah, you can see here, the disallowed features are camera and microphone. So that's why we'd have that issue there. But if we were to come back to Wikipedia and most sites, to be honest, and do this, you can see now it knows our extension name, it knows that tab, and it's going to show this message just here that the Rusty Recorder wants to use your camera and use your microphone. Now, once we allow this once, we'll only have to do that. So now, if we're to come back again and click onto it, it's not going to show that, and it's going to show that the permissions were granted. But if we come back to BBC again, and if we clear this out and we try and run that, it shows that that was denied. But if we come back to this other site and run it again, it remembers that it's allowed. There's nothing much we can really do about this because of the way it's set at that site level. We can't really get around that. But in terms of actually us being able to access the camera, we're now in a good place to be able to actually go ahead and display that just here now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, now that we have or should have permissions to access the camera, is to actually start using this. So we're going to create another function down here called start camera. And then down here, basically just going to call that function. So what this needs to do is first, almost what Copilot's suggesting, we're going to create a video element. So this will be a new element just here, and we're going to set the same styling that we had above. We don't need all of this though, we just need a width of 200 and a height of 200. And then we are going to set autoplay to true. We're going to make sure we're muted, and we don't need plays in line. We're basically going to append this onto our camera element. So you can see down here we have camera element, append child, video element, and then we actually need to set this this object to actually use and display the camera. So first we need to get the camera stream. So this is going to get our user media. So we're going to use navigator, media devices, get user media. We don't need to get audio, but we do need to get video. You can go a step further. Say there was like multiple streams of video. So right now you can see this is recording from my iPhone, but I could switch that to be from the webcam, like the built-in device camera as well. So you could add options like that. But for this video, we don't need that. So now that we have our camera stream, we can set that as a source of our video element. So if we save this and come back to our extension, so we go back into here, we click into here now, and you can see now, this is going to be recording just here. So as you can see here, we just need to go into this and adjust this slightly. So where we have our width and our height, we can just change this. So we only need one of them. So if I was to move into the center here, that should be just about right. So if I made this smaller, that should always be in the middle. And then we can just set a border radius of 100 pixels, and then make sure that that is in the center. Now, one thing we'd actually need to do as well is add a transform to flip the camera, because normally that's quite a common thing here. So we'll just go back now into this. We only need to set our height. We're going to set a border radius of 100, and then we're going to add a transform of scale X of -1. So that basically flips it. So if we come back here now, yeah, there we go. So these should be roughly the same. And obviously this is they're both using different cameras, so it's not a direct comparison, but you can see basically it's doing the same thing. So as we scroll down the page, it's going to still show. So that's good. So that's the camera part coming in now. And all this is really doing is making sure that we have permissions for our camera, We can tie this up a little bit now so we don't need to log this or this. So that's where we call this just here. So that is our camera set up and ready. Okay, so what we need to do next is, rather than actually injecting it straight away, we need to change to actually listen when the user is ready to record. So we're going to go back to our pop-up page here now, so we can close out our camera files because they're basically ready. And then we're going to close our content, and we're going to go back to this pop-up file. So what we want to do is change this a little bit. So we're going to go up here and add some styling. So again, we're going to use the body. We're going to set a min width. Actually, we're going to set a width of 400 pixels. We'll set a background color of red just so we can see what we're working with, and we'll remove the margin and the padding. Again, feel free to change any of these, this styling here, because this is just to show us as an example here. Actually, in fact, I'll move over here. So we'll save this now. We'll come back. Okay, so we can see what we have. So we probably want to actually make that slightly smaller, but make it a little bit taller. So let's say around 280 and a height of 400. And what we want to do is add this inside a div. And then we'll say, just add a little bit of text. It's like record options. And then we want two buttons. We want to have a button with an ID of tab. And this will just basically say record tab. And then we'll have another button with an ID of screen, which will be record screen. So that is all this page really needs to do. So if we come back, refresh, click on here, we can see we have these two options. Let's just make this a fair bit smaller. I think I overestimated how much we would need there. And we'll just get a display. Actually, we'll add this in here. So display of flex and center everything. So that should now show in the center of this element. What we might do just to change this is put these inside another div, just to break it up a little bit. Okay, so now what we have is our options just here. So one final change we need to make is in our popup.js, rather than running this code straight away, we're now going to set up some listeners. So we want to listen for when either record tab or record screen are clicked. We also need to check Chrome storage if we're already recording. So we're going to do a few checks for that. So let's just see what Copilot is suggesting here. So we want a function that's going to grab recording and check the status. Actually, that isn't far wrong. So what we're going to do is say check recording, and then actually let's just say recording state equals check recording. We need to await that, which of course means we need to put this inside of a function as well. So we'll call this init, and we'll move that down here, which will run as soon as the page is opened. We'll make this an async function as well. So then we're going to get our recording state. So down here, we can just console log the state. And then if we are recording, so if recording is on, show stop button, which isn't quite what we want to do. So we want to change this a little bit to grab two types of information. So we want to get recording and recording type. So down here, we're going to return recording type and recording status like this. So that's basically what we're doing. We're grabbing from local storage if this is currently recording, and if we have a recording type. So down here, if recording state, it's this part here, well, actually, let's just log this first so we can actually see a better example of what we have through. But it should basically be an array with these two options. So we're going to come in here, click onto this. We need to inspect the element of this actual pop-up. And that's where we can see here. So we have our state, and we know that this is false because we've never set this before. So it's going back to our fallbacks. And then we have this empty string. So what we want to do is if this is false, so if recording state in the first part, which is actually if it's recording or not, equals false, then essentially we want to just listen for these clicks. But otherwise, we want to check. So this means we know that we're actually recording. So if the recording state equals tab, we want to grab this this button. So what we actually do first is set these up here. So we'll say record tab and record screen. So that is the right IDs. No, it's just tab and screen. So now we have these available to us. So what we'll do down here is if tab is recording and it's of type record, we can say inner text is stop recording. And then of course, if it's not, then we're going to say to record screen to stop recording. So if we come back, that we shouldn't see any changes here. Yeah, we can see that's just showing the same. But if we were to just test this the other way around by saying true, even though that's not quite the case, that's going to show recording screen because we just used a if else. So that's good. So that means we have that coming in. And then all we need to do down here is actually add some click events. So we're now going to set, so actually we can just do this to be true and be like that. Because it's only going to really happen after it's happened. So down here, we're going to set a click event. So for this one, we're just going to say record tab is clicked. And then down here, we're going to set one for the screen. But what we're actually going to do is have a function just here that will say start recording, and that will pass in a type. Like this. So then this actually needs to come up here. And then all we need to do is just run this start recording and then pass in either tab or screen. So now we're going to come back up here and check what we have so far. So we're going to come back. What we need to do for this is let's just refresh the whole extension just to be safe. Okay, yeah, we fixed those. And then we're going to come back over here, open this, inspect. But what we want to do to be able to actually really easily see what's going on when we actually click on this is move it to the side. So if we move this to the console now, come in here, record tab, we can see what's going on. The reason I'm moving that there is because if we had it over here, inspected and then clicked back, it's going to get hidden. So that's the only reason for that. So in here now we can see that we have this different function or different event that when we click, we can see what is actually happening, and we're not straight away injecting our camera into the corner of the screen. So now that we have this, let's just step back a second and plan out what we need to happen next. To record our tab, we need to actually plan out the flow of information. So what we basically need to have is a message will be sent from our pop-up to our service worker. So if we were to look at this down here, so we have our pop-up, we have our service worker, and then we also have our off-screen document. So this is essentially, if you've ever worked with Chrome extensions back in Manifest version 2, This is basically like the old background script because it has access to the DOM. But these have obviously been removed. So now we have to use an off-screen document. So this is for recording a tab. So let's just make sure we put that up here. Because when we come to record now whole screen, that's slightly different. So this is basically going to be going through a flow like this. So we first send the message from our pop-up to our service worker. This is going to then check to see if we have an active off-screen document. If we do have one, we're going to use that. If we don't have one, we're going to create it. So it essentially means we only ever have one active off-screen document at a time. So once we have that, we can then start using, just before that, we need to have one step in our service worker that will use the tab capture API and get a stream ID. So this will mean that we will start capturing the current tab. So if we're on this page, we'll grab the tab ID from this page and send it to our service worker to know what to actually do with that. So let's jump ahead now into this code and start working through what this needs to do. Because obviously once we have this tab ID, we send that to our off-screen document to start recording. Okay, so to do this, we're going to first go over to our service worker, and we're going to add a listener for when a message is sent. So let's just add a comment up here just so we can organize this a little bit. So for messages. So this will be Chrome runtime on message, add listener. So, exactly the same to how you'd normally add these. And then we basically want to have a switch case over the message type. So this is basically what we want. We also want to return true because this basically allows us to have async functions before we send a response. And in this, we probably don't need to actually send a response. So we don't really need this, and we don't really need the sender either. But we'll keep these for now. So we will, we'll just leave these at the top. So we'll log out exactly what we get, and we can remove this. So now that we have this, we can start to actually break down what we have here. So if the request is to start recording, we want to, rather than just sending a type, we'll get all of that and all of that. So let's come back now to our pop-up page, and then up here where we set our function, we're going to send a message to our service worker to start recording. So all we need to do there is use Chrome runtime send message, which by default will send it straight to our service worker. And then we want to say that the message type is to start recording, and then we're going to pass along our recording type as well, because that's it's quite important. And then in our function to stop recording, so there's two things it needs to do here. So if we are recording, so up here, we need to know basically if we are recording or not. So to do that, we're going to come back into here and get this state again, because this could have theoretically it could have changed from when we first loaded the recording state. It's unlikely, but it's probably best just to add this part in as well. So if recording state is true, then that means we need to stop recording. Otherwise, we're going to start recording. So it looks something like this. So down here, we need to stop the recording, and here we're going to start the recording. So that's basically the main flow here. So we'll probably even change the name of this to update recording, just to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so if we go through this again, so we can see that we have this function here, and then what we can actually do is say inject camera. So that means if we know that we're going to be recording, we can also, actually we could do that back here. So if we know we're going to start recording, then we can inject our camera. So that is roughly what we want to do here. We don't even need to await this because we don't need a response to continue. And the same here, that isn't going to make a difference. So that is pretty much what we need just here. So what this will mean is we should, when we test this next, we'll see the console log and we'll see our camera get injected. So if we come back, we're going to start refreshing this now because we have a few moving parts. So we'll come back over here. I'll move out of the way. We have our log open, but also open the service worker as well. And move this across so we can see what's happening. So we come back here, click onto our extension, click record tab. We can see a few things that are happening now. So I'm going to move over here. So we haven't got any console logs on the page, but we can see that we have got this message in here, that we have our message received. So that was that very first part at the top. And that has information on, the tab and everything. And then we saw that we had a request here to start recording. And then if we did want to record screen, we can see it's going to change to record screen. But also we can see that camera ID has already been declared in our content script. So essentially we're trying to inject this information just here. So what we're going to do is come back to our file. Where is it? Our content script. And we're going to change this slightly. So we'll change this to window camera ID. There's a few ways we could go about that, but let's just check to see how that is working now. Camera has already been declared. Okay, yeah, so again, we have this. We could do the same thing here. Like this. There's a few other ways actually we could do that. We could actually first check to see if the element is even in the page. But for this example, if we run it, then we run it again, yeah, we can see that that's working. And it's not trying to, because we know that the camera's found, it's just going to get into here. It's not going to re-inject everything. So that's essentially working fine. But if we come back now to look at our background, we can see that we have all of these messages coming through. And we know if it's recording the screen or if it's recording the tab. So we're slowly getting there. Let's just remove this, not on the page twice. So what we need to do now is come back into our service worker, and we need to make a few changes. So first we're going to create a function up here. We need a couple of functions. So one we need is to check. We can actually use the same one we have up here. To check recording. So we'll move that over. And then we also want another one to update recording state. So with this one, we'll say const update recording of type. And we're just going to basically use Chrome storage local, set recording to true, and then set our recording type just here. So that's all we need to do there. And then we also need to create another function to start recording. And this will be an async function, which will take in the type. For now, we'll just move the console log we have here to start recording into here. And we'll have another one to stop recording, which again, will take in a type, but we're not going to really do anything with that. So let's now switch these to use this. So we're going to say start recording, and that will take in our recording type. Let's just double check that's correct. So when we call this, yep, it's recording type. So that's the type of the recording that we're going to have. And then we can remove this. And then for stop recording, it's going to be exactly the same. Although for that, we don't actually need to have a type because it's not going to change what's happening there. So all we're going to do to begin with, we're not going to worry about actually recording anything. We're just going to update recording to be false. So just here you can see we have our type. So we need to say, we're going to have state, which will be state, and then our type. So that'll be false. And this can be an empty string. And then just here, it'll be true and it'll be our type. So what we need to do now is come back in here, and then where we start recording, we also want to log the current state, and we can log that as well. So if we come back in here and remove this and refresh, I'll move back over here. We're going to click and record the tab. So we can see the request is not defined on line 21. That's because that's going to be type. We'll come back and refresh. Okay. So we're going to come in here again and record tab. This is one thing you might see from time to time, just depending on the way the extension is set up, is even though we've updated and fixed that on line 21 here, we need to fully remove this just to make sure that it's been updated. So sometimes you might fall into this where it's like sort of cached what's happening there. This more happens when you come to work with service workers and off-screen documents. It's sometimes can just get a little bit out of sync. But I think this is more a bug within Chrome than anything else. So we just need to add our extension again. We can try it again. So here we go. We're going to come back into here, pin our extension again, record the tab. Okay, so we can see now we have our recording state when we start recording. And if we come back over here, you can see that now that we've got all this linked up, this message is correctly showing that we want to stop recording. So if we click that now, you can see that that's going to stop recording. We have this on line 15 though to start recording again. Oh, that's because that's just incorrect. So that should say update. But that actually means now that we have this flowing through correctly. So if we come back, we're open, you can see that it's updating that state correctly between each part here. So the other thing that we actually would need to do is when we're making these changes, straight away after here, so in update recording, once we actually finish sending these messages, we're going to close the pop-up, which we can simply do with just window close. So if we come back in here, refresh, open our service worker again so we can see what's happening, go into here. Once we click record tab now, it's going to do all the work it needs to do and then close the tab. So if we come back here, we can see that start recording has changed to stop recording. We click that and it's all updated. As you can see again, that change we made in the service worker isn't reflected because we need to remove the extension again. So it's annoying that that's getting into that state. But now we're in a good place where we can see what's happening just here. So even if we record screen, it knows that screen was the state that we used. And if we stop, it's going to update that. So the next thing we need to do is actually make sure that we actually do record the screen and set up our off-screen document. But to do this, we're going to come down into this start recording just here, and we're going to break out the actual recording into two different functions, depending on whether we want to record the tab or record the whole screen. To begin with, we're focusing on just the tab. So we're going to start by saying record tab, and then we don't need this. It's going to be a function like this. So then down here, when we say update recording, we can say if type equals tab, we are going to record tab. And then we can say if type equals screen, we're going to record screen, but we'll comment this part out for now. So down here, we need to first set up our off-screen document. So I'm going to paste in a little bit of code here, but I'll explain exactly what it's doing. If you want to look into off-screen documents in more detail, I have a full video that goes into this. But basically what we need to do is, await this just here, is we need to first get our existing contexts. And then we're going to loop through these different contexts to see if we have one that has a context type of off-screen document. If we don't have one, so basically if we haven't created this before, we're going to create an off-screen document, which will have offscreen.html, which we're going to create in a moment. And then we have our reasons. So you can see here we have user media and display media. We might only need user media here actually, but I'll leave these both in just to be safe. And then we just add a justification. So you can see here we're recording from the Chrome Tab Capture API. So from this point on, we know that we have access to the off-screen document. So what we need to do next is use the Tab Capture API to get a stream and then send this to our off-screen document. Now we can do this with a normal Chrome message, but there's just an extra parameter we need to have. But first, let's set up our stream. So to do this, we need to get the ID of the active tab. So we're going to do that just by using Chrome tabs query and get the active tab just here. So then we can just say if this is missing, we're just going to return. Otherwise, we're going to set the tab ID to be this first tab that's found and the ID just here. So first we'll just console log this so we can see what we have. And then we're going to actually set up our stream. So for this, we're going to say stream ID is equal to Chrome tab capture get media stream ID. And then into this, we need to pass in the target tab that we want to use. So we know that's our tab ID just here. So for that, we need target tab ID, and then we just set that equal to our tab ID. So what that should mean is we have this stream now that we can use to record the screen of the tab that the user is on. So as we can see here, in this case, it'll be this tab here. If we clicked it from here, it'll be this tab here. The one thing of this though is because we have to click onto the pop-up window up here, or the action icon, whatever you want to call it, that basically activates this current tab. It's similar to using the active tab permission. So when you're using the tab capture API, you need to sort of bear that in mind. If you then clicked off to a different tab, you can't switch across to start recording that screen. That's why we have the two separate methods here for recording tabs, the single tab, and recording screen, which we'll look into next. But first we need to finish off this flow to record the tab. So as we mentioned just there, we now have this stream ID that we can actually use. So now we need to send it off to our off-screen document and actually start working on the off-screen document here. So first we're just going to console log our stream ID, and then we're going to test this. So now we have our service worker updated. We'll come over here, click record tab, and you can see here is our information. But what we need to do first, let's just stop recording. We need to come back over here and we actually need to await this because this is a asynchronous call. So once we've awaited that, we now know we'll have this stream ID. Okay, so we're almost there now. We just need to actually send this across to our off-screen document. So to do this, we're going to send Chrome runtime send message again with a type of start recording. So we'll keep this the same as what we have down here. So it's exactly the same name essentially. But the main thing we have different here is we have a target of off-screen, which is important. So this is how we know this is going to go to the correct place. We don't need this record type. But the main thing we have here now is this data that includes our stream ID. So that is essentially all we need to do to link this together. Next, we're going to come back into here and create that off-screen HTML file. So it's just offscreen.html. And then we just need to make sure that we pass in offscreen.js just here. So that is basically all we need from the HTML page there, because that's just shown in the background. So in here, we now need to listen for messages from our service worker. So this will be exactly the same just here. And then we're going to do the same switch case. So we'll say message has been received. We'll just put like off-screen message received. And now we have we don't need the recording type. We don't need this. So we're down here, we're going to say start recording tab. And then now down here, we'll say stop recording tab. So what we're going to do first is remove this send response. So we're going to save this now and just make sure that we have the flow all connecting up. So what we're going to do first is come back into here. So we have our tab ID, our stream ID, and we're just going to add another thing here. We'll say off screen start recording tab. And then where we have our call to stop recording, we also need to make sure we basically do this exact same thing so we can stop recording as well. So we need to copy this logic just here. We could even just do another thing actually of, let's say record tab state, and then this will either be start equals true. And so that down here, we only need to run stream ID. So this would be if start, we'll run this. Otherwise, stop, and we'll just send a message to say stop recording. So that means, because we still need to get all this other information here, we don't actually even need the tab ID. So we can move that up and indent this. Okay, so we get our off-screen document. If we don't, we create it. And then down here, if we need to start recording, we grab all the information that we need. Otherwise, we're going to stop recording. Okay, so that's this part just here. And then we just need to update this to stay start recording the tab with true. Otherwise, false. And there's one more thing we can actually do just here as well. Based on this, we can update the icon of our extension. So we can do Chrome action set icon, and we have a recording state just here. So this one will be not recording. And then up here, it'll be recording. So if we come back now and add our extension again, we can start to test this all out and then finish off adding in our off-screen document. Okay, so here we have everything connected. We're going to click record tab. We can see this is passing through. And now one thing we need to do to actually see what's happening in our off-screen document is if we come back over here, we can see we have this extra 2. We can click onto offscreen.html. And this is where we can actually see the logs from our off-screen document as well. So if we look at these two, look at them side by side, we can see this is going to show the logs from our service worker, and we also have the logs from our off-screen document. So here we can see that we have our message was received, which was that first log we had, and then we know the main one here was when we wanted to actually start recording. So that's all getting through, which is good. And then now if we come back over here and send a request to stop recording, we can see that this comes through from our service worker, and it also gets through to our off-screen document. So that means that the messages are flowing nicely between our service worker and our off-screen document. So now we're ready to start to link all of this together. Okay, so there's a few things we need to set up here to start linking it all together. So first we need to set a variable essentially, or a let here for the actual recorder object, which we're going to adding events to. And then we're going to set something in here for data, which is basically the chunks of data. There's two main ways we're going to use this. In the source code, I've done this slightly differently. I'm using IndexedDB, but to keep this video shorter, I'm just going to use an array here. We're going to push these chunks onto. But they basically work in exactly the same way. And I'll put a link in the code below so you can see how it would work with IndexedDB as well. So that's the data object we need just here. And then now we're basically going to have two functions, one to start recording and one to stop recording. So this one to start recording will take in the stream ID, and we basically need to use that stream to create a new object to listen basically to that tab. So what we're going to do is put all of this inside a try block so we can catch if there's any errors, we can just log them onto the screen. So basically all we need to worry about is this code just here. And what we'll actually do is move stop recording higher up, so we can see where that is. Because this function might get a little bit long. So first we need to basically check if the user's recording already. We need to send an error so that we don't reload something over the top of that. So there we go. So now we have this, we can see the stream ID here. So we're going to start recording. So we're going to use the tab captured stream ID. To basically set up this media object. So then what we're going to do here is create a file called, or a const called media. And this will be basically this exact code just here. So we want await, and it's navigator, media devices, get user media. And then in here, we need to take in audio and video. So it's actually the exact code that Copilot is suggesting just here. But what you'll notice is the most important part here is stream ID. So this is what we're passing all the way through from our pop-up with that ID, or not the pop-up, the message from the pop-up, which goes to our service worker, which then creates the connection from tab capture, which finally gets to here. So that's where we then set up this media part. Now, what we need to do next is basically connect our microphone, the user's microphone, to this stream so that we can actually make sure that this passes through. Otherwise, it's only going to be the sound from that tab. So what we need to do for this is get the audio from the tab. We can include video here as well. Once we have that, we need to combine these two streams together. So Copilot isn't quite right just here. Then what we're going to do next is just set up an audio context. We're going to create a mixed destination of these two pieces of audio, and then we're going to connect the microphone stream and the media stream from above. And then we just put this into a combined media stream here, and then add it to our recorder that we have at the top. So that should connect these two streams together so that this is now going to start recording. But right now, and we can also set our type here, our file type. What we need to do is actually listen for when data is going to get added onto here. So we can use recorder on data available, and then we can basically just push this onto that array that we had up top here. So that's what we need to do there. And then finally, we need to listen for when we stop recording. So that basically happens very similar to when we listen for on data available, except it's on stop. And then we're going to, for now, we're just going to console log this, say like recording stopped. But what we could do is convert this into a blob and open window. So you can see we could do something like that and then just do window open. So what we're going to do later on, obviously, is have that separate page where we show it. But what this is basically going to do is just load that video file. But finally, we now need to start recording. So all we need to do there is just recorder start. So we're almost there. So what we just need to do now is come up to our stop recording function. And this is basically just going to stop recording. So we first need to make sure if we have a recorder with a state of recording, we can come into here and stop. And we also need to stop all tracks. So we can do that just like this. So recorder, stream, get tracks, and then for each one we're going to stop. So that's basically the flow here of what we need. We didn't actually call this in our off-screen document, so we need to make sure that we pass these in. So let's remove it completely again and try this again. So we have our service worker. We've completely added our extension again. We'll come back, we'll record the tab. We just need to make sure that we open up our off-screen document. Okay, so we can see we had an error there with on data available, so I must have put that in slightly wrong. So we'll come back and check our code. Yes, we just want these single brackets around here. And that should be all we need. Yeah, so I basically did the same issue there, where I had those extra parts. So it's just recorder on stop. Then we have this async function for what we'll need later when we're making calls to send this data. So at the top here, we just want just like this, which should, I think, fix that issue. So let's come back and load this again. So we're going to refresh, come back into here, record the tab, get our off-screen document. Okay, so there's no error this time. Come back. And now as soon as we stop recording this time, it should notice that we've stopped recording, process all of this together, and then open a tab basically with this information. So there we go. And I can hear that the audio has been recorded. So those streams are now combined. If I move away, you can see this video is not part of this because it's not actually on the window. But when we do our actual screen recording, this will get included into there. Okay, so this is a big way forward now in terms of actually putting this together. Now let's close this tab for now. You can see that is the blob information there. So that is one part almost there basically now. So let's just refresh this, move back over here. So if we look into our code again, just to recap what we've done. So we have our message from our pop-up, which goes to our service worker. Our service worker then makes sure that we have an off-screen document context available to us. We then set up our tab capture, so we get our stream ID. We send that to our off-screen document, which then uses those stream IDs to set up the stream with our microphone, combines them together and starts recording. And then as soon as we stop recording, once we send the message again from our pop-up to our service worker through to our off-screen document, we stop recording and open that tab. So we have that linking together. And now finally we can come across and tick this one here. And then we just need to finish recording the screen. And then we have that change like we mentioned, so we can view that recorded data in a nicer way rather than just open it as a raw video. So we'll look at that part next. To start recording the screen, we're going to go back over to VS Code and we're going to create some new files. So we're going to be calling this one desktop record. So we need an HTML file and a JavaScript file. So we'll just come back over here. We'll call it desktop record.html and desktop record.js. Okay, so in here we want to do a couple of things. So we want to be listening for messages, which is basically going to allow us to start recording, very similar to in our off-screen document, and then to stop recording. So that's all we will need to listen for in here. And then in our desktop record, we're just going to add in the source of desktop record. And that's basically all that file really needs to do. So in here, we're going to be adding these listeners. So it'll be Chrome on message, add listener. So exactly like we've been doing everywhere else in the code. And then again, we want to have that switch case on here. And we're either going to start recording or stop recording. We don't need a recording type here because it's always going to be a type of screen. So then we need to do basically exactly like we did before, where we're going to create that array that we can, or not the array, the recorder object that we're going to be using, and then the data as well. So now we need to basically have that flow to start our recording. So we want an async function to start recording. And then in here, we need to do a few things. So because we are going to be like running this from within like a pin tab. So first I'll go through and actually explain what this needs to do and why we need this separate file. So if we remove, we don't need the pop-up here. Well, I suppose we can keep that. We don't need the off-screen document, but we're going to move this across. We're not going to be using tab capture. Okay. And we don't need to reference the off-screen document at all, really. So we're going to move this over here in a way because this is an actual normal HTML page. So we're going to call this our desktop recorder tab. And the reason this needs to be in a tab is because of the permissions and the context that this needs to have. So we're going to make it be a pin tab over here. So we'll like add it to the very left side of the page, and it'll be pinned. Initially, we'll bring focus to that tab so that we can show the permissions overlay. But as soon as like the permissions have been granted or it cancels or anything, we'll put the focus tab back to wherever we came from. So if we came into Wikipedia, or to click to start recording screen, it would move us over to that pinned tab, ask if we can start recording, and then as soon as we give that response, it will send us back over here. Hopefully that makes sense. So we'll have that message here. So that's basically going to look something like this. So that will send a message. Well, first it will create the tabs. Let's move that here. So we're going to create that pin tab. And once we know that tab has been created, we'll send a message from our service worker to that brand new tab. And then here, we're basically going to be, we'll just put it in text down here. So we'll request screen access and start recording. So that will then, of course, set that local storage variable, or not local storage, that Chrome storage variable, the same way that we're recording our off-screen document. And then we'll be listening for another message that will happen later to stop recording. And when we get that message, we'll basically stop recording, process that the same way that we do in our off-screen document, open that video in a new tab. So we'll move this over here and we'll say open recorded video. And then just after that, we will have some sort of, when we're sending this message, we will await, say like a second, 2 seconds, and then close the window. So that's the rough flow. So we have our pop-up that will send a message to our service worker, and we know that they want to record the screen. So we need to then create that pin tab. Once that tab has been created, we're going to send a message to that tab to start recording. Then, recording will happen. The user can move across through different tabs, and we'll make sure that if we can, that we inject the camera in the corner of the screen. That's one more change actually we'll need to make up here, because right now we only have it when they first click onto the page. So once that's happened, they can continue recording. And then when they click again into our pop-up to stop recording, we'll send a message again, which will then get into this flow where we want to open, like stop recording, get that blob information, open our recorded video. And then at the same time, we're going to wait for that message to get sent, and then we'll close the window. So that's the rough flow that we're going to be looking through here. So if we come back to VS Code, we can start to plan this out. So as we can see, we have this file just here. So one thing we actually will need in here is a focused tab ID. So this will basically be the tab that the user was on beforehand, so we can move that focus back when we're ready. So in here, we basically need to make sure that we have in our manifest that we have desktop capture. So we're going to use that first. So we're going to use desktop capture to get the screen stream. So to do that, we need to first make sure that we, exactly like this, use Chrome desktop capture, choose desktop media. So to do that, we need to pass in an array of the types of context we're going to allow our user to have access to. So that'll be screen and window. And then all we do is just have our callback. So that'll be a sync function that will include our stream ID. So that's basically what we need to record the screen. And then we can just use that just here in here. So that basically would mean at this point we have our stream ID. So if we were to console this and say stream ID is just here, but we still need to remember those. We have this focus tab, and we need to somehow find a way to also connect the microphone similar to what we do back here. So that is slowly getting there, but we also, a way to think of it is we pass the stream ID into our off-screen document, but here we need to do this all together. So we need to do something similar to, Navigator, media devices, get user media to actually use it. So that's one of the things we need to do next. We have this now. where we have access to the stream. So we just need to add this check here. If the stream ID is null, then we can just return, which probably has some sort of error message, but we'll worry about that later. But so down here, we know that we have a stream ID. So now we just need to set up that stream. So we're going to set a new variable in here of stream, and let's just check what Copilot's trying to do here. That is exactly what we need. So we're going to use navigator, media devices, get user media, and then we're going to pass into that those two objects again. So we have audio, which is mandatory, video, mandatory. And then this time, rather than it being tab, we're setting that media source of desktop. And then for the source ID, we're going to use that stream ID that we've just got passed in just here. So whether the user's selected screen or window, it doesn't really matter too much because we're just going to use whatever has been brought back. So if we were to test this just now, we'll just do a console log of this stream. So we're not going to actually record anything, but I want to show what that dialogue that will be brought up when we run this. So come back into here, let's just fully remove it and add it again. In fact, just before we do that, we need to make sure that we actually inject this tab. So we're going to come back to our service worker, and then down here where we had our record tab state, we're going to add in our screen options here. So we're going to come back down here and create a new function, which will be record screen. And then in here, what we basically need to do is create that tab. So we're going to create focus tab with an index of 0. So make sure it's right at the very, very front. So that is almost actually what we need, but we're going to change this slightly. So we'll first say desktop called path, and this will just be Chrome runtime get URL of that path just there, and then we'll create the tab. So you can see here, this is just tab. We don't even need this part here. So it's going to await that Chrome tabs create. We have the path to this. It'll be pinned, and it will be with an index of 0. And then we'll just set that this is active as well. Active will be true. Okay, so now we can actually go ahead and run this again. So we'll just come back, fully remove our extension, and add it again. Okay, so we'll come back over here. I'll move this down here. And then we're going to click onto our extension Popup, and we're going to record screen. So you can see what this has done now is it's brought us over here to our pin tab. Nothing's happened yet, but you can see that this is moved across. It thinks that we're recording, but we're actually not yet. So we'll just press stop for now. And that has moved everything across over to here. You can see it's actually injected the script as well for our camera. But that means we've got this part first. But what we need to do is we could wait for, let's say 500 milliseconds and then send a message to this tab. So this is where I actually might want to get that tab ID. Let's call it new tab. And then we can send that message. So we can just use, we're going to set just a timeout for now. That we could find a more effective way of making sure this is actually injected, but for now, this is all we need. We can remove this type. So we're just going to set a timeout, 500 milliseconds. Then we're going to use Chrome tabs, send message, use that newly created tab ID, which we have just here. And then we're going to send a message of start recording. So if we save this and fully remove our extension and run it again, let's see what we get this time. So you can see now we get this message that's been brought into our screen. So now we have this option: do we want to record our entire screen or a select window? If we were to say entire screen, we can click share. Nothing's going to happen just yet, but if we look into our console, we can see, if we look for the ones that just say desktop record, we have this media stream just here. So this means we're almost ready to actually start recording. One more thing we need to do though is make sure that once we finish setting up this stream, that we send or update the focus of the tab back to wherever it was we just came from. Okay, so what we need to do next is just also get access to our camera. So we're going to get our microphone. So that would just be navigator, media devices, and get our microphone. Then we just want to check that the microphone actually has audio tracks. For that, we can just do if microphone get audio tracks, length does not equal 0, then we'll just have our code in here. So if we don't have access to a microphone, we can just return, but we should at this point. And these are all places we could add error messages for our user. But for now, we know that we have access to the microphone just here, and we have our stream ID or our stream just here. And then now all we're going to do is create a combined stream that will take in, so this will be a media stream, and it will take in our video tracks and our microphone tracks. So now we have a stream that's ready to actually use. We'll log it just here. But now we can use our recorder, and we can say we want to start a new media recorder using this combined stream and set that same file type for our video. And then now all we need to do is when we have new data available, we can actually use this. This will be very, very similar to what we have in our Offscreen document. You can see down here on data available and on stop. So we're just going to go ahead and copy all of this and move it into our desktop record just here. Let's just make sure we have the same indentation. But other than that, we're good to go. So there we have it. And then let's just check what we have. So this will be slightly different actually, rather than using this. What we're going to do for now is just comment this out, and we're going to say data, just so we can check what we have so far. And then right down here, we're going to just clear that out. So now we're almost ready to test this. We just need to make sure that we set a function to stop recording. So all that's going to do is check that the state is actually recording. We're going to stop our stream and then make sure that we stop all of our streams as well. So that is pretty much everything we need just here. But we need to do one more thing. So when we come down here and we start recording, we need to set focus back to the previous tab. So that'll be our focused tab ID just here. So what we can do is say if focus tab ID, then we can just update Chrome tabs update with our focus tab ID and make sure that that is active. So that is pretty much all we need. We just need to make sure that when we call this function, that we have this in our included in. So we can just say request focus tab ID or something like that. So then now when we come back to our service worker and we check what we're doing here, we can just make sure that we set this tab, but instead of using this new tab, we're going to say current tab. And that'll be active, set to the active tab on the current window, because if you have multiple windows open, that could be different. So we just need to make sure that we say current tab ID and then pass that into here. So if we save this now, we should hopefully see that this is going to link these together, but we just need to make sure that we are listening for when the active tab's changing so that we can actually try and inject our camera. When we have this set, we need to actually move this before we create that tab, because we're actually setting this when we're grabbing this active tab here. This is just after we've created the tab. So it's always going to be grabbing the one that is currently focused, which is the new tab we just created. So if we come back now, remove our extension and add it again, we should hopefully find that this is going to be correct. So we come back in here, we're going to go to record, so we record screen, we get our message, we press share, and the focus has come back. Okay, perfect. So now we just need to do one more change so that when we jump between tabs like this, if we're recording our screen, that we inject the camera if it's not already injected already. So to do this, we're going to come back into our service worker and we're going to add a new listener. Let's move it just before this start recording function. So we're going to be using the tabs permission. So you can see in our manifest file here, we have this tabs permission, which means that we have access to be able to listen to when the focus tab has changed. And the reason we need this permission is so we can actually access that URL. The main reason we want that is just to not run it on any Chrome or extension pages, because it just causes unnecessary errors. So what we're going to do is listen for changes to the focused or current tab. So that'll be Chrome tabs on activated add listener. But what we're going to actually do is in here, so before we actually run any of this logic, we have this active info. What we're going to do is make sure this is not a Chrome URL or an extension page. So we can say active tab is Chrome tabs get. We then use the active info tab ID, and then based on that we can see if this actually exists. So if it doesn't exist, we just return. And then what we're going to do next is just set this to be a tab, and then we can use this active tab and then use the URL. So for now, we're just going to log this and see what we get, so we can test to see what's actually happening when we switch between tabs. So we'll save this, remove our extension, and add it again. And then all we need to do now is just move between tabs, and we can see that we're getting these logs just here. And then all we need to do is just check to see. So if I move this one, you can see that it's a Chrome URL, and that's basically what we want to exit out of if we get into one of these. So we'll come back, and then we can do if Chrome or extension page, we're going to return. So that would essentially just be starts with Chrome or starts with Chrome-extension. We're going to return. But let's just, rather than returning directly, we'll just add a little console log here. Chrome or extension page, exiting. So that is good. And that would mean, based on the permissions that we have, if we get to this point, we can inject into this. So all we need to do now is see if we are currently recording. So to do that, we just want to check recording and recording type. And then all we need to do is, if we are recording and recording type is screen, we're going to inject the camera. And then if not, we can actually remove the camera. So now let's go down to where we normally were injecting this. So if we come down here, where was it? We had this, was actually in our pop-up. Yeah, it's this inject camera function just here. So if we copy this and bring it into our service worker, so we'll just move it above here. So this was basically going to get our active tab and inject content into it. So what we're going to do is come back here, inject the camera, and then down here we're going to remove the camera. So we're just going to copy this whole function and then change this to remove camera. And then to begin with, we're going to actually change this slightly. So rather than it being a file, we will call this a function, and we'll just run this code just here. So this basically means this code will run on that page. So if we look at our content script, we can see we're basically trying to use this just here. So if we find that we have this ID, we should know that we have this element just here. So what we basically want to do is check to see if this URL is on the page. So if we think through, there's a number of different ways we could do this. So we could start by just going to a tab that has the camera on. So if I move down here, we come back to our record, we're going to record tab. So if we look to see where this is, bearing in mind we're going to be acting in the context of this page, so we could check to see if this frame exists. So if we were to run some code that was like query selector, get that camera, and we could just do something like style display equals none, that's going to hide it. So if we just start by doing that in our code just here, so we first want to see, so we'll say camera equals this, and then we can say if camera, or if no camera, return, and otherwise do this, something like that. But then what we need to do is in our pop-up page or in our content script, each time that we're going to run this, we need to make sure that when we are loading our camera, we just make sure that we set the display type every time, because otherwise it's going to force us to actually have an invisible camera, even though we know it's actually on the page. So we'll come back into our content script just here, and then if the camera is found, we're basically going to make sure it is visible. So we can run this same code just here, and rather than none, we'll set it to block, which should be all we need. And then down here we can do the same like that. So let's save this now. And if we jump between pages whilst we have this installed and we're recording our screen, we should hopefully see that the camera gets injected between the tabs. And once we stop recording and move between pages, it should get removed. So let's see what we have so far. Okay, so we have our extension added now. We're going to come back, we'll pin this, we're going to record screen. So it's going to take us to this focus tab. We can share, it's come back. We can see our camera is over here. So if we now jump across to this page, our camera's been injected correctly. If we come over here, it's been injected. And if we now stop recording, we haven't actually finished that function yet, but now if we change between tabs, okay, so it's not quite working just yet. We didn't actually add the function to remove camera. That could have actually caused this. So let's come back now, remove our extension and run it again. Okay, so we'll come over here. We're going to record screen, give it permissions. Okay, we're recording. If we change between tabs, we can see that the camera's been injected. And if we stop recording, change between tabs, okay, the camera's been removed. So that is almost there. I don't know if you noticed that when we actually first stopped recording, we need to make sure that we remove it straight away from the current tab as well. So if we come back into our pop-up, and if we know that we're going to send a request to stop recording, so if this here is stop, then we want to have that same call to remove camera. So this is the function just here. So we just come back to our service worker. We're going to copy this, take it back to our pop-up and just place it up here beside Inject Camera. And then we just need to check one more thing. So if we're in this page now and we want to record the tab again, yeah, it's going to get moved back in. And if we stop, it's going to update that. We're going to go back into our desktop record file, and we're going to come down here and at the top, we're just going to add two new functions. We're not going to look into these too much at the moment. Like I said, I'll share all the source code to this. But these functions are just basically going to be to convert our blob to base64 and like pass a URL blob into there that we then will then adjust and call this function here to convert that blob to base64. So what we'll call here is fetch blob, and that will just take in that URL. And this will basically mean that when we pass this blob to our service worker and then to the page that we want to render this, that we saw in the example at the very beginning, we can then close this tab, and it doesn't matter if we close this tab because we've converted it into a string that we can actually use. So that's what we have here. So all we need now is this fetch blob function just here. Then we're going to come down to where onStop event is. So we know that the actual data is recorded, and then we just want to create our blob file here, which is just going to be a new blob that is all of this data. As you can see here, we're pushing onto this data event. In the final code, you'll see an example as well that uses IndexedDB, which is just a slightly more secure way of storing this, especially for larger files. But for now, we're just going to focus on just using this array. And then all we're going to do next is just convert this into base64. So all we need to do now is send this in a message to our service worker. So what we'll do first is just log this, and then we'll just say open tab. So then we can start to link this all together. So we have this open tab call just here. So if we go into our service worker and look at our messages, we can see down here, sorry. Yeah, so we're going to have one here that is case open tab. And then all this is going to do is send we're going to have a new function up here that will be open tab with video, and that will take in we'll just pass in the whole message just here. So then what this message will basically have is it will either be the blob sort of URL that we can use, or it will be the base64 URL. So that's what we're going to do just here. Actually, this code is sort of right, but we're not going to use that. So what we'll do first is just console log request to open tab with video, and then we'll just leave it at that for now. So then up here we'll just say open tab with video and then the request. So that just should keep it a little bit more straightforward. And then all we're going to do just here is, you can see we have this video.html. So we need to actually work on these next. But what we should start to see, so what we'll do, let's just think this through. So we're going to go to our off-screen document. So this is where we're currently calling open URL. So we're going to change this instead to send message to service workers open tab. So same as we did just there. That'll be Chrome runtime send message, and that'll be this URL. We don't need to do that. And then we can get rid of this window open. And so we should now have that for when we record from our off-screen document and when we record from our desktop record. So we can get rid of this as well. So let's just see what we have. So we're going to send this data to the service worker. We first convert that blob using that function we wrote up there. That's going to use this URL of the blob file. And then we turn that into base64 and send that to open tab. Okay, so that looks like it's pretty much what we need. And then what we need to do in our service worker is, we know that the message will either have a URL or a base64 encoded video. So if we don't have either of those, we know there's going to be an error. So if no URL and no base64, we're just going to return, and then otherwise we can open this new tab. So we're going to do Chrome tabs create, and then we're going to set this new tab URL. So let's change this actually to video URL just to make that clearer. And then down here we can set our tabs URL, which will be Chrome runtime get URL. This will be the video.html file that we've created, and then we can create this URL. So what we can do now is send a message to the tab. We could really wait for the callback to be complete, but for simplicity in this video, we're just going to set a timeout, and then we're going to send a message to this tab to actually use that. So we'll create this called new tab. So that should be everything that we need. So now we can save this and go into our video.js. We're going to say listen for messages with a type of, what do we call that? Play video. Of play video. So first we're going to add our actual listeners, and then we're going to say, we're going to switch case on this, and then if we have our video, we're going to use that. So let's just create a function up here of play video, and all this is going to do is, we're not going to have any of this. We're just going to alert a message. Then after that, we're just going to send what the message is. So just very, very, very simple to begin with, to see what we actually have. And then we're going to go into our video.html and just make sure that we are calling this video.js script in here. Well, I spelt this wrong. So you can see here, yeah, this one here, it's not spelled correctly. So we want to make sure it's Chrome tabs create. We need to await these. Make sure we have this as an async function, and we'll come back. These little things that just sneak in. So let's just reload it now and see what we have. So we'll come back into this page. We'll pin this, record our tab, wait for a moment again, until we've got a little bit of recording. And okay, we'll stop it now. So we can see, okay, received message, and there we have our object. Great. Okay, so that means that's flowing through nicely. So yeah, we just need to make sure we await that. So there's our request to play the video. You can see we have this blob. So if we then were to do the other type of recording, so if we come back, record screen, we're going to set access to the screen. We're going to share. Again, we'll wait a moment. We'll go between two tabs this time, and then we will stop recording. We can see the message was received. We've got our object again. If we come in here and check the logs this time, we can see we have this base64 URL. Okay, so that is great. So now what we can do is basically focus on this video page. So there's a couple of things that we want to do in here. So basically in here now, we're just going to set up some rough HTML. So I'll go ahead and add something and then come back. So I've just made a few quick changes here, just using this background here. I'll share a link in the description to like the resources to get this, but it's basically, I think it's hero icons or hero patterns, and they have all these designs you can use. And then we just have this video element just here. So now in video.js, all we're going to do is set the source of our video. So first we're going to grab our video element, and that will be, won't be this, it is recorded video. So we can just say document query selector, recorded video, and then we can say if, well, we could do it either actually. We could just say URL equals message URL or message base64. So let's just double check that's exactly what we pass in. No, it's either video URL or base64. So let's just adjust that. And then down here, we can say video element source equals video URL, and then we want to play. So let's see what we get so far. We'll remove both of these, because what we want to do next is basically make it so we can store the previous video in local storage. So when the page first loads up, we can load it from there rather than having to wait for a message to come through. But first, we should be safe here to just go ahead and refresh rather than removing the whole extension. So come back, refresh our extension, come into here, we'll record this tab again, wait a couple of moments. Now we will stop recording. Okay, so there you can see this is the page just here. So it's, like I say, pretty basic. We just brought this pattern in here and just displayed this just a bit nicer in the page. But what we see now, if we refresh this page, we completely lose access to the previous video. So I just want to add some basic memory into this. And then we're almost there. So we'll come back into this now. And what we're going to do is create a function up here to save the video to local storage. So this will just be save video, and this will actually just be the video URL. And we're just going to say, so this will be provided here. So then up here, whenever we get this, we will update the saved video. So we can, well, that's the code we'll need, but we're going to call save video with the URL. And then when this function first opens, so down here, we want to check to see if there is a saved URL. And if there is, so basically this is the exact code we want to use. So it'll be Chrome storage local, get the video URL. If we have a video URL, we're going to grab that result, and then we want to play the video. And you can see here we've stored that as video URL, so that when it comes into here will be grabbed just here. So let's just add a console log just here. So we'll say play video from storage. So we'll save that. What we need to do first though is come back. So once we refresh this, we're going to come back over here, record another video. So let's move out the way. We'll record the tab again. Okay, so we should have enough data now. And like, again, there's loads of features we could add here to make this a more complete extension, like some sort of countdown timer here before it actually starts recording, wait for the video to be ready on the page. There's a lot of things here, but we'll stop recording now. And then what we should see this time, if we check tools and refresh, yeah, you can see this is grabbing from our local storage. So that is basically how this all links together. So if we were to record the whole screen instead, it takes us to that page there. We can go between these different tabs, and then we can stop recording. And that's going to get that message. So it's first going to try and play, you know, the previous video, but then it realizes there's a new video coming in, and it replaces that. So that is basically, and hopefully this video didn't take too long, steps how we can create Loom. So what I'm going to do is in the next part of this video will be, you can find on my course, which will basically continue from here and go into how we can add some AI features to analyze the contents of the video and suggest a title and description and things like that. But basically that'll be using this base64 blob string of the video and sending that to OpenAI. So if you want to find out more about how you can do this, feel free to check the link in the description. There's a lot more in the course as well. It basically covers everything you need really to learn how to build extensions for Manifest version 3. But if you've got any questions, you know, on the process of building this, because this was quite a lot involved here, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to me. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.